My dear brothers of the governing body, the purpose of me writing this letter is to thank you for the marvelous gift of the new DVD.
I was overwhelmed with tears to receive such a wonderful gift.
How do you make the movies about Jehovah?
Movies bring out the kid in all of us.
They can transform us to another place, another time.
So, how do we make the movies about Jehovah?
Well, it takes a team of willing volunteers.
But these videos can only be produced by Jehovah's Spirit and blessing.
Here's a few examples of how this is accomplished.
Filming a chase scene in New York City takes a lot of planning and a lot of coordination. We had to have cooperation from the New York City police. We had to get film permits. We had to hold parking, which in New York City is very difficult to do.
So a week prior to the shooting deadline, we had all the permits we needed, and we get a phone call from the mayor's office saying it's been declared a hotspot. Declaring a neighborhood a hotspot means that no movie company can go in there because the neighborhood has had too many film shoots in the area. They want privacy for a little while, and then they can have you come back. This was on a Thursday that it was declared a hotspot by the mayor's office, and we knew that we had to start shooting on Monday at 7 p.m., and they made it very clear, you're not going to get this permit. It's a no-go. We never make exceptions. And had that happened, the release probably would have been delayed at least a year. So we asked, is it possible that you could give us this permit if we don't take up any parking, we leave the streets empty? Would that be okay with you? And they said, okay, we'll think about it, but you'll find out on Monday. So Monday morning, 8 o'clock comes, there's no call from the mayor's office. Finally, at 4 o'clock, the mayor's office called and said, you're go for tonight.
So the script called for us to have the characters leave a bar, David and Al, and they get into a car, David reluctantly, Al takes the keys from him. They go driving, Al runs a red light, and the police then follow, tries to evade the police, ends up crashing the car, he runs, David gets caught and arrested. Now, that's the way it was written. We had to actually add flesh to that. How do we do this in New York City? Well, no one location worked.
Although it's always better to film on location, it's not always possible because of logistical reasons. So when David and Al walk out of Pete's Tavern, that's actually a set that was built inside of a building. And to create that type of a set, of course, took a lot of planning. It took visits to actual taverns to see what the ambience was, how their signs were placed, what colors they used, the aging of an older tavern, how we could create that in a movie set. So we were able to take all of our different ideas and put that into Pete's Tavern so that when you're in there, you feel like you're in the real place.
So they actually leave the bar. It's a set that's located in the factory building. So they exit frame, they enter frame in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, at an intersection we found that worked for them to walk to the car.
So when they make that first corner, we went from inside from a set out onto our city streets.
The car pulls out of the shot, and we pick it up at a completely different area of Brooklyn where they're driving down the street.
In order to make the scenes work, it was going to be necessary to have a police car. The difficult thing is you can't really just buy a police car. So we took 2 plain white branch vehicles. We were able to just decal them up. We had to purchase all of the lights, and they had to be fully operational because they would have a chase scene. So that meant that they had to be running, driving police cars. The lights had to work. Everything had to look like a police car, right down to the wheels and tires.
When you do actors in a car driving, you don't want them really driving. That could be very disastrous. So we actually had 2 neons.
One vehicle was rigged up to where it was actually being towed behind a pickup truck.
We had a camera position on the hood and a camera position on the side. So that was car number 1. We had to have a second car that we could see as it drove by. That couldn't have any of that on it. That was the one we crashed.
We had wireless microphones placed inside the car for each of the actors who have this dialogue back and forth about whether or not to run from the police.
But one of the problems that we had was the wireless microphones were cutting in and out. So what we had to do was bring the talent back and re-record their lines here on site in a vehicle with something that's called ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. And that's a process where we replace those original lines with new lines that are recorded in a controlled environment, and that gives us clean, high-quality audio for that scene. Another challenge that we encountered was recording the sound effects, such as the sound of the engine of the car. The sound of the car running on the road. So we had to go back and record some of the sounds, and then we took the clean dialogue, we took the sound effects and the finished music and mixed them together, and we got something that sounded like this.
This is ridiculous, dude. What do you... Come on, man, just pull over. Does this car have anything in it?
So there, the chase sequence finishes on all of these side streets around the J Street parking lot. We didn't want to put our two novice young Bethelites in any harm's way, of course. So we had to have a stunt driver, but we also had to have a dummy for David. So we actually had a dummy that was put into the car, the passenger seat, so that when the vehicle went around and crashed, it wasn't really our character David in the car.
So sometimes when we're filming, it may take maybe several months to film one scene. So we have to make sure with continuity that everything matches. Like if our main character, their wardrobe, their hair, makeup, would all have to continue to be the same during a filming period.
An interesting experience happened when one of the police officers who works with the film unit in New York City, works with big movies for 20 years.
He drove up where our cars were, and when he got out of his police car, he said, "Why is another precinct here? This was our job this evening." And I remarked to him, I said, that's our cars for the scene this evening. And he was very impressed because he said the cars looked very real, and we did a very good job in putting the vehicles together.
Now he sees how well dressed we are in safety vests and everything. He came up to us and said, "You know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never seen a crew as professional as you." And I thought that was a pretty neat compliment. Coming from a worldly police officer who works with professional movie crews, they looked at our inexperienced crew and thought it was the most professional. But it really goes to show you how Jehovah's Spirit can bring people together and get something done that could not otherwise get done. One of the most powerful moments in The Prodigal is when David hits rock bottom. He lost everything, and he breaks down and he prays to Jehovah. We needed a location and we needed a mood that would really make this a powerful scene. Where could he go after he left Taylor's that would be a place where he would be secluded and able to just break down in front of Jehovah? And we looked, we scouted different locations. One worked here, but there was too much noise from traffic. Another place, it didn't work out because we couldn't get the equipment to it. But we finally found an alley that worked right on Watchtower property.
In the sequence with David leaving Taylor's house, it presented a couple challenges to the team. The first being that in the script, it was a rain scene. So we had to devise equipment to replicate rain. Even though it is challenging to create fake rain, it gives us control that we normally wouldn't have if we were to wait for weather to do it. So we had what they call a rain bar, which was basically a 20-foot piece of pipe with sprinkler heads on it that could be hooked up to a water source, and that helped provide the appearance of rain.
You don't see rain on film, actually. You have to light it the right way. So we had to backlight the rain as with these big lights so that you could actually see it on film. And it turned out to be a very powerful image as David rounds the corner, much like when he comes home and sees his father for the first time in many, many months, is that just you see this rain washing over them.
So just the logistics of getting those things to work, finding proper sources of water. But probably another challenge was the time of year when this was being filmed.
It turned out to be the coldest night in that whole time period.
I can only describe the level of cold as jumping into an Arctic Ocean.
As soon as the water hit the ground, within a few minutes, it was starting to actually freeze up.
They had to keep sprinkling salt on the ground so that he wouldn't slip as he came up the stairs.
And we felt bad for our actor because he's freezing and he's soaking wet. But if you look in the movie, we see his breath, and it just only adds to the power of the scene.
And one of our best takes we got, he was dry. And he has to look wet. As he was doing the scene, we had to have him, poor guy, stick his head out into the rain so that he would be consistent, so that our continuity would match all the way through, because you couldn't have him walking through the rain and then ending up dry as he's in that little alcove spot.
The camera is a completely impartial judge. It sees honesty, it sees fakeness. It doesn't care either way what it's seeing, but it can tell when somebody is not showing true emotion. And you as the viewer can see that as well.
That's not easy to do, especially because in times like that, we really kind of want to get away from everyone. But he's being asked to be put in front of an entire crew and show this kind of real heartfelt emotion. The real goal is to touch people's hearts, maybe to move them to make changes in their own lives, maybe to see something in themselves they didn't see before. And so that ability to be able to bring a believable performance, even if at times it's very painful for us to bring those emotions forward in our own lives, it really helps to have the audience connected through their heart.
So it only takes a few minutes to watch. Actually took several weeks to produce. Then all of these hours and hours of footage is given to post-production, where the editor has to go through this footage and create the story to produce the final result.
After the video's edited, we take the final English script, the final menus and on-screen text, and we provide that to the branches. And then they take all of that material and they translate it into their language.
Bakit mo ba binibilisan? Matatakasan pa natin yan. Ukuanan na din. Iwo, kumbanam niya kwan po kiraises. Donga na ne, pamboda po maki.
Идиотизм какой-то. Что ты? Давай уже останавливайся. Да что за телега?
It's always exciting when we finally get that DVD at the convention, and we think this is not only being provided to us, but it's being provided to brothers and sisters around the world in their language.
This is Jehovah's work. And even though each one of us can lend our specific abilities and skills to the project, it's really Jehovah that accomplishes the work.
We see all of these people come together with all sorts of different levels of experience, and somehow we end up with something that's going to actually help save people's lives.
Sometimes you're asked to do something that seems completely impossible. Something that you feel like can never be done in a very short time is in front of you on a movie screen, teaching millions of people and moving their hearts.